record on this computer. Okay. All right. Hi, Brittany. Welcome to Sparta Elementary. First, let me start off by telling you about the position that we have available. It is a functional academic position, and it is for kinder through second grade. So you will be doing those grade levels in a self-contained special education room. You will have 2 aides. Those students go out into the general ed classrooms for inclusion, into whatever they have in their ARD for inclusion, and then also to PE and music with their grade levels or with their entire class. You will be responsible for their ARD documents and their daily lessons inside the classroom, and then also you're responsible for those aides that are in there and the workload that they have. So that's where we're at. Tell me about yourself and why you would like to teach here at Sparta.
So I'm currently in my 5th year teaching. I've taught pre-K, general ed, I've taught pre-K special education, and I have taught a position similar to what y'all call FA here in Belton, also K through 2nd. So I'm familiar with the ins and outs of how it works. I love working with kids. They're such a joy. I enjoy being a teacher, and I enjoy seeing the kids' eyes spark when they learn something new. I think that's probably my favorite thing about being a teacher, is getting to teach new things and seeing the kids light up with joy, especially in science. Science is just the best. Science is so fun. I am applying to work here at Sparta because I've just heard from several people how amazing y'all's campus is and just how genuine everyone is here, and I would just love to be a part of that.
Awesome. So in your current job, what has been successful? So 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
What has been successful in your current job? And then what would you change?
So in my current job, what has been successful, I love to use small groups in teaching, especially with a special ed population. Doing a whole group doesn't necessarily differentiate the way necessary to reach every child. So I prefer to pull small groups to do core teaching so that every student gets the material the way that they need it, because it may be tactile, it may be visual, it may be auditory. However they need it presented in a small group format, I'm able to pull them and provide it that way. Something that has been unsuccessful, I tried whole group teaching and learned really quickly that that's just not super productive for our kiddos. You can probably hold their attention for 5 to 10 minutes and get something done, but after that 5 to 10 minute window, they're choo, 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 and we're just not going to get anything else done. Nothing else is going to get learned.
Just a follow-up, when you're teaching in small groups, what do you have your other students do?
So they're working on their IEP goals specifically. So we put together buckets that have all of their IEP goals, activities that are designated for those goals, so that they're working towards achieving those goals every day. It's not just something, oh, pull them once a week and we work on this. They're getting that material every single day, so that we can actually progress those goals rather than just sitting stagnant.
All right, so if I walked into your classroom, what would I see instructionally, and then just describe what the environment, the feel is like in here?
So I like to have a classroom culture that is, if the student needs something, they know where it is, they can get it themselves. I'm all about independence, especially with our kids, because a lot of times people think, oh, they can't help themselves, I need to help them, when in reality that's not the way that it is. They can be independent, especially if you train them to be independent. If you show them that pencils are here, when you need a pencil, you go get your own pencil. they can do that. They don't need to have a pencil passed out to them every time they need a pencil. So independence is my main goal. And then as far as instructionally goes, like I said, I like to pull small groups. So typically you'd see me at a table with a small group, possibly one of the other aides with a small group. And then the third aide would be walking around just kind of maintaining the IEP baskets and goals and facilitating the students who are working independently at their desks.
Awesome.
Tell me about your experiences with poverty or the low-level students, and how do you motivate those students to ensure that they achieve success?
So I've actually worked in a very low-income school, and something that I learned very quickly is that a student cannot learn if their belly is empty. So I always made sure that their bellies were full before I ever tried to do anything, because we couldn't get anything done if we were cranky or upset. And something else that I learned is that there are things that happen at home that you can't control in school, and we just have to be understanding of that. Sometimes they would come in and they hadn't gotten any sleep the night before. If they need to take a 30-minute power nap, a 30-minute power nap. Being flexible with them is kind of the biggest key. Maintaining consistency, the schedule. Change for them is hard because so much changes at home. So just maintaining that strict schedule so that they know that school will always be consistent. What was the second part of the question? I apologize.
How do you motivate those students to ensure that they achieve success?
Relationships. If they feel that you value them, they will value their learning. If they feel like you don't care, they're not going to care. If I don't care about them, why would they care about me? But if they know I care about them, they're going to put the time and the effort into the learning that I'm putting into their learning.
Have you had to go the extra mile to meet needs?
I definitely have. I've had a couple of parents that couldn't afford groceries. I've bought several baskets of groceries. I had a student who, his mom very upsettingly told me if he doesn't go home with food on the weekends, he doesn't eat. So every Friday I'd put Cheerios and cans of SpaghettiOs in his backpack, just like whatever canned goods I could find that I could stick in his backpack. A lot of times I'd have to make brother carry the backpack because the backpack was too heavy for him to carry. That one was really hard because the other brother's teacher didn't care. So I made sure that brother, sister, and other brother had plenty for the entire weekend. So it was, yes, is the answer to that question. Yes.
So what content area would you consider your strength, and then why?
Ooh, science. I love science. Science can just be so much fun. You can have the kids do so many different things. Science is so hands-on that it's just impossible for it to not be fun. We did a science experiment where we had ice. We were talking about the states of matter. So we had ice, and then we poured tap water into the ice, and we showed how it went from a solid to a liquid. And then we poured in like boiling water, and we watched it steam, and we talked about how then we created a gas. So the kids were actually able to see and walk through all the states of matter in one little experiment. And it was just like their minds were blown, and it was just so cool to see.
So on the flip side of that, what content area would you say that you struggle with, or is that you maybe don't love teaching as much, and how do you kind of overcome that and make sure that the kids are getting the best in that content area that can be provided?
Math, because I don't love math. I've never been fantastic at math. Like, I've been all right at math, but just not the best at math. So working through getting myself good enough at math to be able to teach them math, I would say that was the biggest struggle. But for me, it's just going over whatever I'm teaching over and over until I know it well enough to be able to communicate it to them in a way that they'll understand. Like place value. Place value is so hard, especially for our kids to understand because it's so like abstract. Like there's a 1 and a 3. Well, the 1 is actually 10, but the 3 is only 3. And so for them, that's just like mind the concept.
Yeah.
So finding a way to make it merge is difficult, but finding fun ways to do it, like place value monsters and turning the tens blocks into hair and the ones into teeth and making it creative, and then you count the tens and you count the ones individually. So just finding fun ways to make it concrete.
All right, thank you. What has been throughout your 5 years of teaching, what has been your favorite professional development that you attended, whether provided by the district or you went somewhere, and how have you applied that in your classroom?
So I'd actually like to talk about 2. So 1, I got to go to a math training years ago. It was like 3 years ago, but years ago. And in the training, they actually gave us all the manipulatives and all of the things to teach specific math lessons that had to do with those manipulatives. And we actually got to take those home to use in our classroom. So that was really cool. And it was like things like dominoes and teaching domino addition, dice and using dice to represent numbers and things like that. So it was just really cool that when we got to take those things to actually implement in our classroom, and also just learning all the new techniques and all the new just different ways to teach math skills, because like I said, I struggle with teaching math. So getting a math professional development that was actually informative, useful, that was really cool. And then the other one, so I have a student currently who uses assistive technology, and it's a very complicated device. And I got sent to a training specifically on that device and how to use it to learn the system. And that was really cool because they told us how to hook it into a computer to actually have her type out an essay or different things like that. I can project her talker up onto the projector so that the kids can see what she sees, and as she talks, they can see it, and because they're all curious about what she's doing and why she's doing it and why hers is different than theirs. So they can actually see it and interact with her through that. And I can actually touch it and do it with her. So that was a really cool training, just getting the up close and personal training on that, because hers is a doozy.
How do you learn best as a learner? When you're sitting in PD, how do you learn best?
Visual and tactile. If someone's just talking at me, I'm not going to take much in because I zone out. My mind will be on what am I going to cook for dinner tonight, or what do I have to do tomorrow, my to-do list. But if there's something for me to see, or they're manipulating things or doing something, or I'm manipulating things and doing things, that's how I learn best, because then I have something that I'm doing that goes with what they're saying.
So how do you know your students are learning what you're teaching?
So I do a lot of checking for understanding. So asking, prompting questions that bring it back to what we're learning to figure out, oh, they do understand. Yes, they're getting it. For example, I say place value because we were doing place value today. So today I would specifically ask a student, like, what is the tens place? And he'd be like, oh, well, it's like the number that's on this side because that's how many tens there are. And I'd be like, okay, well, there's 3. What do you need to do? And he goes, 10, 20, 30. So that told me, okay, he knows what I'm talking about. Now, there are some friends who are nonverbal, so it has to be a little bit different for them. So for them, it's usually like pulling them, having some manipulatives, so some tens blocks, some ones blocks, and saying, Gavin, or whoever, can you make me 13, and then he'll pull the 10 and then 3 ones. And I'm like, oh, all right. Or like I'll show him 2 10s and 5 ones, and he goes 25. So just making sure that you're doing it at all stages. And, you know, you do have to have some assessments. So an assessment at the end of the learning. For me, that looks a little different than, you know, the gen ed population. Rather than a test, it's going to be pulling one-on-one and asking several questions, going through the learning process over just to make sure, like, yep, they got it, we can move on now. But then you also have to bring them back to it every couple of weeks, because if you don't bring them back to it, they're not going to remember it. So just a lot of repetition.
I'm going to go back real quick because you told us about your favorite professional development. What is a professional development that you would really like to attend?
Something that would be super helpful and super useful would be professional development on data tracking. Useful forms of tracking data, how best to track data, programs that are useful at tracking data, the best kinds of data to have. I feel like everyone always says data, data, data. What kind of data? So just something that tells you exactly what data is required for what and when and how.
Well, and I can see that can be so much more ambiguous in this particular setting than it is, you know, in a general education setting where we're looking at STAR, you know,
Exactly.
as one of the main markers.
Because in this, you've got behavior,
Yes,
you've got IP,
exactly,
you've
yeah.
got, oh, excuse me, sorry.
And I think, you know, for some of those kids, you wouldn't be able to tell exactly what kind of data to do, but just having a bank of different things that you
Exactly.
could pull from would be great.
All right, so tell us a little about your beliefs about communicating with parents. What approaches do you take when delivering difficult news or having a difficult conversation with a parent?
So the great thing about our job is that typically parents pick them up. So I get to have a communication with them every day. And for those of you that don't, I use a communication app called Blooms, and they can message me and I can message them. So it's pretty simple communication. I also have a Google Voice number so that they can communicate straight to my cell phone, but it's not my personal cell phone number. That way, if it's an emergency, they know that they can contact directly to me, because Blooms has off hours. So they can't contact you from like 8 to like 6 in the morning. So if that's in place and they need something like right now, they feel like they can get a hold of me, because as a parent, that's very important. I do also, sorry, words were hard just now. When I deliver bad news, I try to give a positive before I give a negative, and I try to deliver the negative in a way that I don't ever want to come across as hateful or spiteful, or say your student is just doing this and it's got to stop. Before I would ever present a negative, I would try to have a solution. If it's a behavior issue, he's kicking a friend, we're going to fix it, we're going to work on it. I would suggest doing this as a solution. We're going to start working on this tomorrow. I'll let you know how it goes. The great thing about the Blooms app is I can, throughout the day, give students points and take away points as necessary. So it's something that's tangible that they can see and hear, because it has like a loud noise. When it's a positive, it's like doo-doo, and when it's negative, it like goes dum-dum. So it's like really sad. So when it's sad, they're like, oh no. And so that actually works really well and turns behavior around pretty quick. And the good thing about it is every day at 6 p.m., it pushes the behavior out to parents. And it has like notes. So like if I take away a point, I write what happened, why they lost the point. And then every time something good happens, I write it in a note like, oh, they were listening so good, or he cared about a friend today, things like that. Because I would never just want them to see the negative and be like, oh, she doesn't care. Because that would just be devastating.
But I like how you're just talking about how you would present it to the parent, and you presented a solution. So a lot of times, you know, sometimes the teacher will present the problem, but the parent a lot of times doesn't know what to do. So presenting that solution along with, how you're going to help them and the parent in that situation is great. Tell me something that you're most proud of in your classroom.
So I've had a student for 2 years in a row now, and last year he couldn't ID any of his numbers. We worked on it all year, and we thought for sure he had a visual processing problem. We were like, he's never gonna get it, and negative teacher moment. I was super frustrated. He's never gonna get it. It's never gonna happen. I was just worn down. And then this year we come back, and the other day I had a number written on the board. He goes 48.
Oh, wow.
Not just like 1 through 12, but like 48. And I was like, okay. And then every now and then he loses his confidence a bit. And if it's like 1 through 12, he'll go, oh, it's 5. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll take that. Like, at least he's figuring it out. Like, he's making the connection. He still struggles with his ABCs, but I'm determined that now that we've got the numbers down, we'll start getting the ABCs because he's right there.
All right, so lots of challenges in education. So when you're faced with a challenge, what's your initial reaction, and then what do you do?
Ooh, so I always start by making a to-do list. What are all the things that I need to do to make this happen? Typically a challenge, in special ed is something like they've given you a large project or a large task, and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get this done in time, because there's usually like a crazy deadline that you're like, oof. So I like to make a schedule of, I need to have this done by this date, and I need to have the next thing done by this time, and then walk myself through those dates. Otherwise, chaos. So just keeping myself organized and on task. To-do lists for me are a big deal. Gotta have a to-do list. I keep them on my laptop on a little sticky note, and it just grows. And then they stack up. But it's nice when I get to cross them off and take one off and throw it away.
So satisfying.
Yes.
All right, so tell us about the best team that you've ever worked with, and what practices made them successful. And then, and I'll remind you of this because it's three questions. Then what is your role? What do you see as your role as the team, on the team, and like what you bring to the team? So best team, what are the practices you think made them successful, and then your role.
So the year that I taught general ed pre-K, the pre-K team that I was on was so fantastic. Everyone had a role. Everyone was on top of it. We communicated. We worked together well. There wasn't ever any bickering or arguing. No one ever got upset with each other. On the very rare occasion that someone was like, ooh, they would go to that person, they would work it out, and then we worked again. I think for any team, the biggest thing is communication, knowing your role, and then making sure that you're performing your role. Because if one person doesn't perform their role, someone else has to pick it up, and then that's where frustration sets in.
Can you describe maybe a time when you worked on a team when something wasn't going very well? Somebody wasn't holding up their end of the bargain or fulfilling their role, and how did you go about dealing with that, either within yourself or with your team or whatever?
So that same team, the next school year, I was team lead. It was my second year teaching, and I was told, you're going to be the team leader this year. And it was with 4 very experienced teachers, 20 years or so experienced teachers. And they were all like, oh, this second year teacher coming in trying to tell us what we're going to do. And I learned very quickly that I went and got the information. I gave the information. They decided what they were going to do, and I just brought it back. Because if I tried to actually lead, chaos because they did not respect me. But I kept at it, we worked on it, and we persevered.
All right.
Let's take that one first. If a friend were going to describe you, what 3 words would they use?
Cliche, but honest. I cannot tell a lie. It is written all over my face. I turn bright red, and I won't look at your eyes.
Noted.
I just yes. I mean, I do that all the time anyway, so don't
Oh, darn.
necessarily use that. But I won't look at your eyes because I'm too just like, I know I told a lie and I know it. So I can't do it. I can't tell a lie. Caring. I am overly caring. To a fault, some say. I will go well above and beyond what should be done and what needs to be done, and I will end up, I don't want to say burning myself out because that's not the right word, but I can't think of a word that's close to it, but not quite that.
Like overextending.
Overextending, that's better. There you go. And then compassionate. I'm always there for people. Someone needs something, I'm gonna be there. If you ask me to do something, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be there. I show up.
So you have a coworker and they are questioning campus or district decisions. They always turn the conversation negative. What do you do in that situation?
So my first instinct is to pull them aside. Hey, what's going on? Like, why do you feel this way? Like, what happened? Let's talk through it. If they're saying something about me, then it's gonna be what can I do to help you? Like, or what have I done that has made you feel this way? And how can I fix it? How can we work together to make it better? If it's campus, then it's what happened? What do we need to do to make it better? Do we need to go talk to somebody? If I try to talk to them and they're like, nah, I don't want to talk to you. Like, this isn't any of your business. But they're talking about it openly. At that point, I would go to administration and say, this is what keeps happening. It's not the first time. I've tried to approach it myself, and they will not hear what I have to say. And then move on from there.
All right, tell us about the toughest conversation you ever had at work. Who initiated it, and then what was the outcome of that?
So my first year teaching, I worked with 2 aides. They were both very experienced. One had been teaching had been in the school system for over 25 years. She was in her late 60s. They had been asking her to retire, and she would not. I came in mid-year, so it was already, she had established relationships, and it was tenuous at best. She was not very nice to the kids. And one specific student, my favorite student actually, like my favorite student that I have ever had, the sweetest little nonverbal baby, but loved to hold your hand. She would pick her up and slam her down in a chair. Pick her up, slam her down in a chair. No, you're gonna stay here, and she'd shove her down into the chair. She would just grab her and yank her where she needed her to go. And I would tell her, like, you cannot do that, you cannot do that. And so I documented and I reported her to administration probably 6 or 7 times. And then probably only a month into us working together, she slapped that student across the face. And it was witnessed by several teachers. And so it got back to me, and I went to administration. I was like, we can't ignore this anymore. It has now been witnessed by other teachers that she has physically assaulted a child. Like, not just, like, hurt a student. The student cried, like, red mark. Hurt a student. And administration was like, okay, well, all right, she'll work with you for the rest of today, and then we'll deal with it. And I was like, no, She will not come back in my classroom. She is a danger to my students. And they were like, well, she's going to have to. And I said, if she comes back in my room, I will leave and my students will go with me. We will leave the room. We will not be in the room with her because she's not safe for my students. So she ended up getting let go, and she was very mad, very mad. She tried to come back to, I guess, confront me, and obviously she was turned away. But that was definitely the toughest encounter I have ever had.
Yeah.
Wow, for sure. For sure. That's gracious. It's hard to see that happen with anybody that works with kids.
Yeah.
So how do you take care of yourself when stress levels rise? Because in teaching, we know that it can get pretty stressful. So what are some things that you do to take care of yourself?
So if I'm at work and I'm super stressed, my go-to is a Dr. Pepper and a Butterfinger because that's something I can do instantly that just immediately just, okay, I'm good. But if it's just like
Keep a stash in your desk.
yes, I do. But if it's just like a build over time and it's just weighing on me, a bubble bath and a candle and just calm, chill, or cuddling my dog. Any of those things will work.
All right. Do you have any questions? And then we'll get to your little mini lesson.
What is y'all's campus culture like here?
At Sparta, we are a family. It's very, everybody helps everyone, no matter what grade level you're on. If they can help you, they're gonna do so. And you know, everybody asks for help from everybody. We are, let's see.
High expectations too.
Yeah, we have high expectations for our special ed students as well as our general ed students in academics and behavior. Behavior is a big one that we have high expectations for as well.
We have a set of non-negotiables that kind of help guide us as a staff, an entire staff, that speak to those high expectations for ourselves and for what we just aren't willing to budge on, and those things are all centered around student achievement and what we expect we all will give. There's grace there because we know we're not all 100% every single day, but we do hold each other up and hold each other accountable, and yeah, that's a positive culture.
One more question. As far as like administration, if there's a major behavior, like there's a major meltdown, kids in the hallway kicking, screaming, I can't move him myself, I'm just overwhelmed. What do y'all do?
The administration here is very active in the general ed behavior, but also in the special education behavior. None of us are afraid to step in and help out where we need to. We're all trained and ready to go whenever. So if one of us sees you in the hallway, or somebody sees and gets our attention to come help, we'll definitely be there as fast as we can to help you out, and what in whatever means it is.
Awesome. Oh, I do have one more question. At my old school, the special ed students weren't encouraged to interact with the general ed population much, like separate playground time. They had their own PE music. They weren't super integrated. Y'all said that y'all do like inclusion. Are they fully included, or are they like?
I will say that's one thing that's great about Sparta is they are fully included. The general ed students know our students by name. They like to say hi to them in the hallway because they're in the classroom with the general ed students and they're in PE music with them. they're at lunch with them, and you see them around the campus everywhere. They do go to recess with them sometimes, and things like that. So I will say that's one thing that's absolutely great about Sparta is our kids love to interact with each other, whether it's general ed, special ed, either way, they do.
I think they see each other as friends.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, sweet.
So, all right, so we'll let you do your little mini lesson for us, and then
I'm gonna apologize. My allergies are acting up, so if I'm a little nasally or I sneeze while I read my book, I do apologize.
No problem
Okay.
at all.
So today we're gonna be learning about story elements. So we're gonna be talking about character and setting. We're gonna read the story, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. It's by Laura Numeroff, and it was illustrated. What do you think an illustrator is? What do you think an illustrator is?
Would you like us to respond as though we're the
Yes,
students?
please.
Okay.
The pictures.
The pictures, so good. Sorry, I can't give an accurate mini lesson if I don't get this.
I absolutely understand.
If you give a mouse a cookie, if you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. When you give him the milk, what do you think he's going to need next?
chocolate.
Chocolate? Ooh, let's see. He'll probably ask for a straw.
Oh.
When he's finished, he'll ask for a napkin. Then he'll want to look in a mirror to make sure he doesn't have a milk mustache. Does he have a milk mustache? No, he drank it out of a straw. No, he drank it out of a straw. When he looks into the mirror, he might notice his hair needs a trim. So he'll probably ask for a pair of nail scissors. When he's finished giving himself a trim, he'll want a broom to sweep up. Do any of you ever help your parents sweep?
Yes.
Yes? Oh, that's good.
Vacuum.
Vacuum? You vacuum? Oh, I'm sure your mom loves that. He'll start sweeping. He might get carried away and sweep every room in the house. He may even end up washing the floors as well. When he's done, he'll probably want to take a nap. Do you want to take a nap after you've worked so hard all day? Me too. You'll have to fix up a little box for him with a blanket and a pillow. He'll crawl in and make himself comfortable and fluff the pillow a few times. He'll probably ask you to read him a bedtime story. So you'll read to him from one of your books, and he'll ask to see the pictures. When he looks at the pictures, he'll get so excited he'll want to draw one of his own. He'll ask for paper and crayons. Do you like to draw?
Yes.
He'll draw a picture. Wow, that is a very artistic mouse. When the picture is finished, he'll want to sign his name. Do you know how to write your name?
Yes.
With a pen. Then he'll want to hang the picture on your refrigerator, which means he'll need, what do you think he'll need?
A magnet.
A magnet? Ooh, maybe a magnet. Ooh, maybe tape. Let's see. Scotch tape.
Oh.
He'll hang up his drawing and stand back to look at it. Looking at the refrigerator will remind him that, what do you think it reminds him of?
He's gonna want something to eat again.
He's gonna want something to eat. Let's see. He's thirsty. So he'll ask for a glass of milk. And chances are, if he asks for a glass of milk, what do you think he's gonna want?
Cookie.
He's going to want a cookie to go with it. All right, friends, we have a little sheet to look at.
Miss Jackson, who's the boy in the book?
So, characters are people or animals that the story is about. So was the boy a character or was he a place? Was he a house?
He was in the story.
He was in the story, so he was a
Character.
character. Good job. All right. So, who was our other character? We talked about the boy. Who was our other character?
The mouse.
The mouse. So, characters can be what?
Animal.
Animals or
People.
people. Good job. And so now we're going to talk about the setting. So setting is where and when the story takes place. Where did the story take place?
In the kitchen.
In the kitchen?
In the bathroom.
In the bathroom?
Oh, outside.
Outside? In
The
the
hallway.
hallway? In the house. They were in a house. You're right. In the
Living room.
living room. And when did the story take place? Was it? Where's that picture? Was it nighttime?
No.
No, it's
Daytime.
daytime. It's sunny. So characters are people or animals that the story is about. And the setting is where or when and when the story happens. Do you have any questions?
Can you read us another book?
Absolutely.
So tell us about this.
So this is in a program called Seesaw. If I were actually teaching the lesson to kids, they would see this exact same thing and they would be able to interact with it, and they could draw on their tablet or computer, or if they didn't have access to a device, I would print it and they would have it in front of them, and they would draw who the characters were, and then over here they would draw when and where the story happened. So they could draw a house, they could draw the sun to show that it was daytime. Nope.
I think if we say it before she sings,
Yeah,
we'll mess it
no.
around.
We're messing it up. Sorry about that.
They can interact with it, and then they can hit submit, and then it comes straight to me and I can grade it in the program. So this program just makes grading, and especially in the culture we're in today, virtual learning, super easy and easy for the parents, because the parents have access to all of their learning.
So talk to us a little bit about, so you've done this lesson, with the kids,
Mhm.
let's say on a Monday. How do you follow this through the week, or how do you cycle back to that to ensure mastery?
Yes, so as you know, there are a lot of different kinds of if you give a mouse a cookie. So we would read if you give a moose a muffin, and then we would talk about the characters and the setting of if you give a moose a muffin, if you give a dog a donut, if you give a pig a party. There's if you give a cat a cupcake. So just using all of the different types of the same story, so that they're familiar with the text. It's not something they've never heard of, and you just keep repetition, keep going over the same thing, but also trying to dig a little deeper. I would change up this activity. We would do this for probably 2 days, but then we would move to a little bit more advanced one, and I would have more options of, is this boy a character or a place, or what is it? And then they would drag and drop or move, manipulate, cut, glue, for things other than just this specific story. It would still be on the same guideline in the same realm, but it would be a different activity. I actually have an example. Let me show you.
And this is you're working in Seesaw?
Yes, ma'am. So, this one, for example, talks about the character, the setting, the problem, and the solution. So as we would go throughout the week, we would start introducing problem and solution as well. And then they would decide, is a house a character, a setting, a problem, or a solution? And then we would move it and manipulate it as a class or individually in small group, however we're interacting at that point in time.
So would you be able to give them a like a small assessment to see where, like at the end of the week, to see where they stand on these things through Seesaw or in, you know, paper, pencil? How would you?
So for this, what I would do is on the last day of teaching this, I would probably pull them one-on-one just because that's how, you know, kids in this population work the best as far as assessment goes. And I would show them different scenarios, different things, maybe have some picture cards, and then ask them, like, is this a character, or does this go in setting, or is it a problem, or is it a solution? And we would just walk through different things, and then I would just have like an assessment sheet that I would track it based off of how they did.
If you don't have anything else, or
Have any other questions?
all right, thank you for coming. Appreciate you
Nice to meet you.
giving up some of your time.
All right, thank you very much.